source-driven platform to advertise its original product. This itself has its strengths and drawbacks, but something that is somewhat rare, at least from what I usually see, is a true anime original ending. Usually, shows with no source material conclude while leaving narratives floating in midair, never giving the viewer any type of closure whatsoever. However, there are some that find their own path and create their own endings. Fullmetal Alchemist comes to mind, and while I like the ending to Brotherhood more, it still had a conclusion to its story. With all this in mind, does today's series succeed or fail at this concept? What's up guys, it's Kent from Spartan Media Reviews, here to review the anime Claymore. Claymore is the medieval Blood Plus, in which mutant vampire-like creatures called Yoma terrorize civilization. However, an organization has a combat force to defeat these monsters, called Claymore. The story mostly follows Claire, a member of the organization, and her battles between these monsters. Claymore does one thing very well with its story, and that's action. The best moments, aside from maybe my favorite scene in the entire show, revolved around the action scenes that took place. Even when some of the battles felt like rehashings that we may have seen in a previous episode, the music alongside them, as well as the other elements the show possesses, keeps things moving forward. The Claymore's tragic lives also creates a good subplot, as well as giving the supporting characters some resentment towards others, which helps us understand what they truly are. It also helps in the progression of the Claymore as well, which now leads us to the faults of the story, especially in the final set of episodes. Claymore's story as a whole is a textbook case of being created at the wrong time. Considering the manga just finished 2 years ago and the animated series being now 9 years old, Claymore would do well with a remake, but that probably will not happen. Instead, Claymore's narrative reaches its high point very early on in its story. I found the initial set of episodes to be rather generic, with not much going for them, but then we hit episodes 7 through 11, and my favorite moment out of the entire series. Spoilers, by the way. Episode 8, but more specifically the death of Teresa, is the most iconic moment of the show, in my opinion. I found her to be the best character in the series, considering she made Claire the person she is, and her death highlighted the strengths as well as the weaknesses of Claymore as a whole. The scene itself has that strong action element, along with one of my favorite tracks in the overall musical score. The episode was also able to hide the fact that it was a prologue very well, at least for me anyways. However, it certainly was able to show the overall weaknesses of the series a lot more. After this particular episode, the story definitely went downhill in terms of creating a strong narrative. The focus was changed to that of a strong battle series with a weak narrative put alongside it, and seeing that same idea spread out over the last 3/4 of the series got dull fairly quickly. The show needed variety, or at least some added narrative details to stop it from being just a battle replay type of show. There were also many questions that the animated series should have at least tried to finish on their own, along the same lines as the 2003 version of Fullmetal Alchemist. For one, the organization is never truly explained beyond the bare bones ideas that we have. We know that they employ Claymore to fight Yoma, but nothing beyond that. What is their true motives behind all this? Why are they so secretive about everything? Why is there this code surrounding the Claymore which makes next to no sense a lot of the time? Why did the male Claymore experiment fail as horribly as it did? Explanations are needed, but we don't have them. Along those same lines, I think learning more about the awakened beings and their organization would be interesting and beneficial to their characters as well. The main awakened beings of the story never receive any backstory besides that they are considered to be bad, so learning more about the main villains of the series is desperately needed. In the end, Claymore's narrative didn't have enough substance to sustain itself in the long haul. Instead of creating content of their own, the story instead starts to drag out to the end, along with creating a pretty disappointing ending, consisting of random and unfair power-ups for our villains. But at least it did make for a cool battle, or beatdown if you want to call it that, which is something the show excelled at more than anything. As a whole, I like the approach, in terms of personality and character progression, that the cast was given. While the cast could be a lot more diverse, the code the Claymore live by, or are forced to live by, is so one-sided you can't help but feel sorry for them. They were human at one point or another. Then they suddenly are treated like monsters, even though they are helping fight the good fight. However, there will be those that go against that path for the wrong reasons, which is one of the reasons on why the Claymore are needed in the first place. The fact that the Claymore can't even hurt humans who are abusing others is ridiculous as well, which is why I'm happy to see characters like Teresa follow their own path, because it is the right thing to do. Claire starts in this direction as well, which makes a lot of sense, thanks to the backstory she is given. Claire's character as a whole is one of the better characters in Claymore. Besides having one of, if not the best backstory in the show, the progression her character receives has its moments, going from terrible lows to finding happiness to then fighting for revenge. She goes along the same lines as Saya from Blood Plus, having questions about herself and the group she works with also. The other Claymore do progress as characters, and I like some of the supporting cast, but once again it comes back to that variety problem. The characters advance, both in power and and mindset when things become known. However, due to the cast having almost the exact same personality, it seemed like more of a rehash after the first couple of times. Nothing is truly different about them, which gives the cast barely any variety or memorability at all. The villains also had some interesting ideas surrounding their characters, considering they aren't the true evil behind everything, but they certainly needed more screen time and, most importantly, backstories for their motives to make as much sense as possible. Then we have Rocky, and well, I don't like him. Rocky is super annoying, otherwise known as a crappy version of Kai from Blood Plus. A lot of people hated Kai, interestingly, who I found to be the best character in that show, due to his change in mindset and the realistic style his character gives to the overall series. Rocky does none of that. Rocky looks like he changes near the end, but then he reverts back to being a coward. If he hated Yoma as much as he says he does, he should have killed one of the villains, or at least attempted to do so when he had the chance, instead of being a weakling. I could see why he didn't want to kill them after learning about why they do these things, but he thinks he can have it both ways, but that isn't possible. It proves he barely learned anything right until the very end. However, to make things worse, he then tries to save Claire in the most stereotypical fashion you could see coming from a mile away, and it costs someone their life. Rocky should have died instead. Claymore's production is so-so for the most part. Nothing about the show looks bad, but aside from some cool moments surrounding some battles and a few design choices, nothing looks fantastic. While the battles themselves have some cool moments, sometimes it honestly felt like I was watching the same battle over and over again. I think the biggest issue I had with the production quality relates to design choices and editing. The editing of this show seemed weird or jarring to me, and I didn't really like it. It cuts to different frames far too often, and the framing to the next shot felt like a jump cut. It's kind of weird in that regard, since the chaotic editing style is something I really like, and it works well with things like the opening and ending of the series. However, they use it for trivial things, and it doesn't make a lot of technical sense to keep the narrative coherent. The show also likes to use an overabundance of technically produced cuts, like dissolves and other transitions, that make those transitions seem way less impactful after a while. The camera is a lot quicker than it should be as well. Some scenes it moves normally, but then it goes way too fast for something that doesn't call for it. However, some of those moves, like the zoom in to reveal Teresa for the first time, work well with the music it is accompanied by. Character designs for this series are a mixed bag. The Awakened beings have fairly interesting to downright awesome looking designs, while the Claymore on the other hand are far too similar, which sometimes makes things difficult to determine which supporting character is which. I like the overall look of the opening, having a chaotic style that works with what they were going for, and the ending has some cool transitions as well. The soundtrack to Claymore as a whole is okay. The orchestral themes in general are nothing noteworthy, but there were two standout tracks that caught my attention. The main piano/string track, Kokoro no Kizuado, if I pronounced that correctly, is incredible, standing alongside what I find to be the most iconic and noteworthy scene from the show. Everything about this track works well with the emotions of the scenes it is played alongside. The other standout track, in my opinion, is the unreleased battle theme track, featuring a heavy metal style with sick guitar riffs. Once again, the scenes and especially fights that play alongside this track work to pump you up for what is about to come. All in all, two great tracks that I suggest listening to even if you don't want to watch the series. Both the opening and ending are okay, having a style similar to that of Blood Plus's or Vampire Knights tracks, but they work well enough for Claymore as well. The dub has its good and bad moments. I think the castings all were fine and the majority of the dub is good, but at points it sometimes sounds too monotone, while at others the scenes lack any sort of impact. Now, with everything that I have said, do I recommend watching Claymore? Yes. Claymore is a really fun ride, and while it may seem like I am harsh on this show, it's because I know this series had a lot of potential. There were some really cool ideas in the narrative that were never fully taken advantage of, and you can only watch the same style of battle so many times before you become bored of it. It's a shame that we probably will never see a remake of the show, because it certainly would be worthwhile. Overall, Claymore is a rough around the edges action series that sometimes has some solid character moments, but nothing beyond that. However, it is the type of series that you will want to look up on YouTube to see the solid battle moments of the show. Spartan Media Reviews gives Claymore an enjoyable recommendation. If you are interested in watching Claymore, you could check out the series over on Hulu or Funimation's website. Now, what are your thoughts on Claymore? Comment below. If you enjoyed this review, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. You can also subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. I would really appreciate that as well. Follow me on Twitter and Hummingbird to keep up to date with the current things that I am doing. And with all that said, I will catch you guys in my next review. Thank you for watching.
Into a hostile existence, second game, are fighting for it.